We live now.
Yeah, man.
Are we live?
We are live now.
Hey.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to another SNE Evil night. Or day, depend where you are. James look like he's in a day place.
Well, it's like in North Yorkshire.
So tonight we have a special guest with us. So we're gonna do as always. We're gonna just before we introduce, we're gonna play the show reel, and then we're gonna introduce the guest, and we're gonna let him introduce himself better than me and James. You know, we're a little bit crap on that. So let me just share the show reel so you guys can have a better idea what we're gonna talk tonight. Give me 2 seconds.
Drum roll.
It's always go wrong. Side optimized. Cool. So you guys should be able to see.
Oh god, my neck.
It's like an audio visual thing. It's like
I
taking
feel like a puppet.
sick of these stupid little stories.
They're
My
not stupid.
best friend explodes. Brilliant. Here we go. Marty Pell, Scottish, isn't he? Fracken's coming to Scotland.
Work and everything
I
is
think-
just your silly small imagination. It's just
I'm perfectly
where is the screen?
I'm perfectly able to.
If Superman can beat it, so can you.
Sweet Jesus. In conclusion,
Nice.
Very nice.
Super nice. Really like really character based. So we're gonna talk a lot about character. But before we start, we're gonna introduce Will. We're gonna let you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit, you know, like in a short way, what do you do? You know.
Said to be one of the hardest things to do, but
I can hear myself talking. Isn't that exciting?
here.
No, it's just in your head. Just in your head.
Just gonna get her walking.
Yeah, it's here. I'm turning off. Done. Cool. So if you can introduce yourself, explain what you do, you know, and what you get paid to do, you know.
Nice. So, thanks for having me first. I'm Will Anderson. I'm a filmmaker, an animator. I'm from the Highlands of Scotland. I'm currently based in Edinburgh, and I make a lot of dialogue-driven, character-led work for film and TV and a lot of online videos as well over the years. I'm kind of really into the process of making stuff, like process-driven work kind of really drive. Yeah, those ideas kind of really excite me. So if you like see a lot of the short films that I've made over the years, they're often about the process of making. Like my first film was called The Making of Longbird, and that was about a character. It was my graduation film actually when I studied here in Edinburgh at the Edinburgh College of Art. All the way back in 2011 I graduated, and that was my first film. And that was kind of about like your creativity, looking back at you and thinking you're an idiot. So like the character itself kind of would speak, and he was this arrogant Russian pretentious bird called Longbird. That's what kind of kicked everything off for me, because yeah, when you go and study, I guess you make a film at the end of your studies, and that was my thing. And then after that, I played at festivals, and it did really well. It was like played loads of places that I didn't expect it to. I genuinely thought no one would really want to see it or watch anything that I had to say. So it was a big, yeah, that was a big moment for me. And then since then, I've just been making stuff independently. I work also with another guy called Ainsley Henderson, who's a stop motion animator, and we're a bit of a team. We'll write together sometimes. I've produced his most recent short. We both directed a feature documentary. It took forever. We can get into that later. but like basically like we're kind of collaborators. So we're
Like Tango and
always,
Cash.
yeah, we're always kind of like working together most of the time anyway. That said, he'll make his own films, I'll make my own films, but we're often a team, you know, like we often our bread and butter is when we work together, if you know what I mean. But yeah, like other than that, I've been very into like 2D rigging, like puppet-based animation design since studying. But in the last since COVID, so in the last couple of years, really, I've moved from 2D more into sort of 3D design and animation. And that's like so fucking brilliant. I love it. It's so like, it's weird doing 2D for 12 years and then suddenly like having another axis to play with. It's so fun. So like I've been doing that, and hopefully you can see that in the show reel. It's like, it's a lot. It's a 12 years of like puppet based 2D stuff. And then, yeah, more recently, I'm like really digging into the process of how to make 3D work in a software called Blender, which is free and brilliant, and I love it.
It's interesting because you can see the kind of like the 2D background in your 3D work, I think. Like it definitely shows in terms of you know, like animation timing and the way things, you know, kind of get together and the way you get personality out of like an, you know, an inanimate object essentially. You know, it's
Nice.
it's good to have that background.
Yeah, I see it often as it's like 2D that's been inflated.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's like you got your design and you just pop it out, and then suddenly you can use lights and materials and like think about them like objects that are in like the real world, which is kind of what you know I was thinking about anyway. But it just has that just tactility now, which is so exciting. And it's also not forgetting that 2D, those principles of 2D for me. It's like in 2D, like Longbird's a silhouette with its beak on its side that like speaks, and its eyes are cut out, and it's literally a silhouette because you know, it's flat. And I often think like that design wise. It's like, you know, it made sense for Longbird to be a piece of paper because it's like flat, you know. But then now with the 3D, it's like, oh, I'll still kind of do that. I'll still like, there'll be like little tricks, like when you flip a bone the other way, suddenly the character's facing the other way. But in a 3D space, you sort of have to, it's a slightly different way of thinking about the design of it. And I'm just into it. I just think it's fun.
Kind of fun. Like when you're animating in 2D, sometimes you'll spend ages doing like, you know, a character turn, for example, to get them to look like they've got some sort of dimension to them.
Yeah.
You know, and so you spend ages doing that, and now it's like, oh, I can just turn it, fine.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And how was this big jump, you know, from 2D to 3D for you? Because a lot of people get scared of 3D software because, you know,
And what inspired it as well.
Yeah, and what inspired, because it's a complete, you know, like you said, give you a different dimension. You know, you can play with lights and everything, but I think at the same time that pulls a lot of people off because they get so scared. You know, before you just draw, rig that and animate, and now you need to model it there. You know, you design and you model it, and you need to light, you need to render. So it's starting to be a complete different, you know, pipeline. You know.
Yeah, well, specifically, like I was always kind of into rigging and creative rigging. I was using this software called Moho, which used to be called Anime Studio Pro, for literally, man, for since college. Like for like 12 years, I was using Moho, and every time I'd like made a film, you get asked two questions: what software do you use, and where do you get your ideas from? And every time I said Moho, everyone's like, "What's Moho?" And I'm like,
I guess I'll tick those questions off.
Yeah, tick them up. Moho is amazing. It's so great. I still use it for fast 2D stuff. It's just a really quick way to basically rig puppets in 2D. I basically around lockdown, when COVID hit, I kind of sniffed out on a forum that Moho was maybe going out of business, which later confirmed that they were bought and they're totally fine, and the software's even better than it was now. But at the time, this was an existential threat, really, because it's like the software that I use for absolutely everything that I almost is like another limb for me because I've just used it so much. is going away. That's what I thought. So I was like, okay, I'm either gonna, during lockdown, I was living alone at the time. I was like, I'm either gonna like go to the gym and get like pumped up and just like actually go. I've never been to the gym in my life, but like I'm gonna do something different that I've never done before, or I'm gonna learn Blender. And I picked Blender.
And I get your 2D characters pump up.
Pump up my 2D characters. Yeah, we use that. Yeah, like so I ended up just jumping into Blender, but the thing that made it very easy was I was basically looking for a replacement for the rigging, that the 2D rigging software that I was using called Moho, you know, to make my work. So I'm basically just looking for a way to continue doing my work, but in a different software. So I went in rigging, and actually it's not that hard. And because I was doing it anyway, even though it's different software, it's the same principles. It's like, you know, you got a leg and you put some, this bone follows this bone and it's paired into that. And if you inversely drag that thing, then the leg works. And you've got inverse kinematics, forward kinematics, blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's really simple. It's actually quite simple when you just start digging into it. So I was doing like a lot of tutorials on YouTube just on my own. And then I've really quickly, it was like a few weeks, a week, 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, I can rig like I was rigging. And then I think my advice anyway, I don't know that was a question, but the advice would be like, you just need to go in with like a plan or a project, like a very simple thing, which is like, I want to know how to rig a 2D puppet. Yeah. So like, that's all I kind of did. And then I realized very quickly that because it's kind of emulating the real world in a 3D space, you could start like using gravity and physics, and you could start kind of writing your own little things for it, like very simple programming using like little Python things. And I didn't know that really, you know, and I've just like watching tutorials. There's a great rigging guy called Pixel Level on YouTube. And his like, it's just genius. He's like creative ways to rig characters. And like, I still go back to them because, you know, you forget easily. Like I still go back to them and go, all right, how do I make a sort of stretchy arm rig thing here? And then I'll like dig in. But I already had the design kind of that I wanted. So I guess like coming in from 2D was a really kind of, it was quite a pleasing way of going about it. I think if I was like studying and I tried to learn 3D, like Blender straight away without any experience or any design or any ideas, really, it would be really difficult. So like,
I guess a bit overwhelming. It's like what you were saying earlier, where, you know, you have an idea and just go for that bit first, and then, you know, then you're breaking it down to make it more manageable.
Totally. I still do that. I'm like, now I've got this character that's like called Greg. He's this hairy cat. And I'm like, you just start with the head, and then you're like, and the eyes are just like lines and circles. And then you're like, I'm going to work on the eyes now. And then I'm going to work on the mouth, and I want to make it really articulate. I'm going to use face cap for like, it's like, it's all very like logical, actually. It's just like, I'm just going to go through it kind of very slowly and very like logically. And then eventually I'll kind of get somewhere. And you know, we're like, we can do whatever we want. It's fun. It's like, you know,
with the scripting side of things, you have like a you know, background or experience with programming previously, or was it just completely new to Python?
Very little. Like I was stuck in After Effects for years and years. I had this like thing where I was like not animating in After Effects at all, because you have to render everything. It's so annoying. But Moho, you don't. So it's like, cool. So I was kind of getting my image sequences in After Effects. But, you know, little bits of JavaScript, because, you know, you have to kind of do that almost kind of write themselves in After Effects, you know. And then looking into that a wee bit, things like if-then statements, if-else things, like, you know, like if this happens, move this over here. They're all like the same. It's just really similar. It's the same sort of ideas. It's just written slightly different. But yeah, when I get stuck, I just kind of Google it. I'm a lot better at it now, but it's like you can turn on like developer mode, and it tells you what everything is in Python script in Blender. So it's like, you're kind of learning kind of passively, just like using the software. So
I have like no experience of Python, so when I hear it, I'm like, ooh, that sounds scary. But
yeah,
that's just my
it does to me
naivety.
too. And I'm a total like,
Maybe if it's called Python, if it was called something nice like, I don't know, Cuddly Bear script, then
yeah,
a
like
bit more
Fluffy
appealing.
Rabbit.
Fluffy Rabbit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But a lot of people using Blender nowadays as well. No, I think I see more and more. I think it's still not like in the level of the industry where, you know, you get enough freelancers, you know, but
Yeah.
I'm seeing more and more people moving to Blender. And
I mean, I assume you do get freelancers. It's just a small,
yeah,
small
you do get freelancers,
talent pool.
not the right amount, you know, like for big projects. We had a project we needed to jump on Blender, was quite hard to find people. But also, I think what I love about Blender is
it's free.
It's free, but you got the 2D side as well. There is one guy on the Instagram does a lot like drawings and kind of in a 3D space.
Yeah,
but
the Deuce, is it?
Yeah, I don't remember the name, but it's
French
really
guy is
nice.
amazing.
Yeah, he's a French guy. Yeah, it's just like shit, you know, it's amazing. And what I've been seeing people doing on 2D on Blender as well is just like fantastic.
Yeah, they have this thing. And actually that's a point, because it's called the grease pencil, and that's what I started with, because I was coming from 2D. I was like, oh, Blender has this like 2D side of it called grease pencil. So yeah, I was like, okay, how do I rig that as like a puppet? You know, like, so it's just basic like rigging and then attaching those layers to like you were doing I was doing in Moho, or like you could kind of do in After Effects. But yeah, then it just quickly, just so like fast, and just like really, really enjoyed the sort of transition. And I'm still like there. I'm still like, I use it like going, you know, like I said, you know, I was either going to go to the gym or I was going to learn Blender. It's like going to the gym for me. It's like, I'll just like,
I like that as the two ultimatums. It's like Blender or a gym, because, you know,
that's the only, that's it. But yeah, if you, it's like a habit, isn't it? So it's like, if you always go in there and just, even if it's like a few minutes a day, or like, you know, because it never is, when you actually like do it, you're there for like an hour or half an hour, or 5 hours, you know what I mean? It's like, so it's just like creating a habit for me. But yeah, I just love it. It's great, and it's changing the way I'm thinking about storytelling a little. It's like, okay, I can make different types of work now, you know. I think there's like a thing about like, I think every 10 years, I'm saying this like I think I'm like an old, like, you know, like wise guy. I'm not, I'm totally idiot. But like, I think 10 years is like, you often reinvent yourself a little bit. You're like, okay, I've done that. Like, I've made like,
what's the next challenge?
Films, and I've made like a longer film that using like 2D animation. I'm like, okay, what are we doing now? We do something else, you know?
Yeah.
But keeps your mind active, like new challenges, you know, is always a good thing.
Yeah, it was partly that, because like, you know, we're working with Ains, like I produced his last film. It's partly, I didn't love producing, I'll be honest, but it was almost like I wouldn't have done that 5 years previous. It was like, kind of fancy to go at something different. So
what made you produce on that one then? I mean, obviously you're saying you want to try something different, but it's quite a different job in a way, isn't it? Like, organizing other people, and it's quite a different skill set.
Yes. Yes.
So was that quite a learning curve?
Yes. It's like there was the reason, well, we were kind of, me and Ains are kind of self-producing anyway, so we'd make our own films, and often, like, I think when we came out of college, because, you know, that's contained, isn't it? We came out and we did a commissioned film where I'm based still, Summer Hall in Edinburgh. We did one here that was a mix of stop motion and live action, and a bit of Maya actually at the time, just for like rockets. The film was called Monkey Love Experiments. I think it's on Vimeo. But me and Ains both directed that. But like, we did have a producer, but we kind of were fine on our own, really. We kind of just cracked on and did it. And after that, we made a few films kind of separately that weren't funded, and that often animators are quite self-sufficient, I think. So like, yeah, it's like you kind of end up self-producing it. That's
why we're all so lonely.
Exactly. But the change that happened was Ains wanted to make this film that was entirely out in the woods where he lives in Northumberland, and it's all stop frame because he's a stop frame guy. And we were applying for the BFI Short Animation Fund, which is this new thing in the UK 3 or 4 years ago it started. And you had to be a producer director. They had to be separate roles,
right?
Which is good, really good, because it's sort of red flaggy when it's like you're producing and directing, and like when you're doing slightly bigger scale projects. I think that's difficult. So I took up the role of like, okay, I'll produce it. I'll like try and get this funded and try and organize all this. And it was really hard. It was like the film's called Shackle. It's kind of doing festivals at the moment, but it was like 2.5-year project.
Wow.
Just like really difficult.
So what did you find? Like, what was the biggest challenge for you then?
Well, I mean, I say it like, oh, it was really difficult. It's like Ainsley was out in the woods for 2 years in like rain, snow, like
no one's seen it since.
Yeah, like with like hailstones, and it's like wild. All night there was like all night shoots at points, because half of it's like shot at night, and like half it's in the day, and like it kind of splits between night and day. So we had a camera control rig that would like shoot the same shot in like day and night, so that it could be like composited together. So it was just such a beast to like make. And like so I went out in the woods like 5 times, I mean, I'm saying it's so hard for me. It was more like the length of time making a short film. We're used to spending a long time on things. Like our feature length documentary took 8 years.
Wow.
So like, again, it's not like every single day. Like it definitely like drifted for quite some time, and there would be a year or two that would go by with not very much happening. But like, yeah, that one was just particularly tricky, and it's such a different process producing. It's so like, it's not really that creative. Well, my role wasn't a very creative one. It was more just organizing and keeping in touch with the BFI and all that, which was fine, but it's just a different job. You know what I mean? So
I always thought of it, and I don't mean in any kind of derogatory way, but I always thought like production, being a producer, is a bit like being a parent trying to wrangle loads of kids together.
Yeah, no, it kind of is. Yeah, it kind of is. Yeah, but we got there, and it's cool. People say this a lot. It's like any film getting made is a bit of a miracle, and it's like when it's actually done, at points you're like, God, is this actually going to end? Like, are we going to get there? Like, but we do. We kind of eventually.
So it's interesting, like when you start a film, you've got this vision in your mind's eye of what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
And then especially if it takes a while to make, like 8 years or even a couple of years, the product you get out at the end is usually rather different to what you went in with.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, like Shackle's super different. Our longer film is so different from what I thought it would be. But like, and again, I think, before I like, well, no, it wasn't before. I think maybe like professional freelance work for a while. I was working with this design company in Glasgow. I still do sometimes, called ISO Design. They're great. And I kind of learned there that it was like you can always make it a bit better, and you can always kind of work into it, and then you eventually kind of just have to stop.
Yeah.
Like you don't have infinite amount of time. And like, it wasn't said black and white like that, but that's what after a year or two working there, I was like, yeah, you kind of just get it as far as you can, and then you have to kind of just let it go. That's part
of the like the skill and the experience side of things, isn't it? You just have to know like when to let go, when it's when it's as done as it can be.
Yeah,
it's the hardest part, I think.
Especially if it's a personal project or something that's close to your heart. It's really hard to just say, okay, that shot's done now. I have to move on to the next bit.
It's a weird mix, because I was saying this to someone recently, actually. Yeah, it's like you have to be obsessive enough as like an animator or designer or filmmaker, like to do it and like to make it good enough, and then also be not precious, not precious enough so that no one ever,
especially with commercial projects.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the big things of you can tell when someone's like either just come out of university or new to the job, because they'll, when you're at university, you can spend ages on your own project for, like an entire year, really finessing it. Whereas obviously in the real world, your deadline was yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's like,
yeah,
just let it go. We need to go to the next bit.
But I think
It's not my vision to sell toilet paper.
Commercial world, it ended up being a little bit easy to let go as well, because you're getting paid, you got the deadline. But when it's a personal work, you get so much attached to them.
Yeah, that's totally true. It's totally true.
And because you're talking like you produce as well, but I think I want to pick your brain here, because for me, doing a personal work, the hardest part is you being creative. You always want to change, you want to polish. It's like the thing of letting go. When you have a commercial work, normally you have a producer, then it's kind of the boss, then say that we need delivery, and it's the person over the top of you and make sure the job is delivery. But you've been doing quite a lot of short films. How you get, because it's hard to get motivated sometimes to let go some part and delivery without having a deadline. So how you get through that, like in the hard times?
Well, there's years between them, but I guess, it's different for each one, I guess. But I always like the feeling like, oh, I'm working towards something that's going into something that'll exist. So it's sort of like I'm not wasting time. So like I had a film called Have Heart, and I was making it when I was working for that company ISO, and I was on the train between Edinburgh and Glasgow. And at the time there was a lot of work, and it was like an hour and a half to get, it's normally shorter, but it was like an hour and a half to get to Glasgow. So it was like 3 hours a day I was like in a train, and I was like, I'll like make something, in that time. And obviously, you dick about and you don't always, but I basically kind of made pretty much the whole thing on that journey. Like, because I had, you had 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I would actually kind of look forward to it. So I was like, oh, cool. How much can I get done today? There were some things that I would be like, I'll try and get a scene done, which is like ridiculous. Like, but like that, it's like building your own little motivators, I guess. The one after that, it's quite personal. Like the one after that, like I had like a breakup, and I was like really like felt heartbroken. So I was like, it was putting something into it. Like it was like putting it somewhere that meant that it was like a useful feeling to have.
Yeah,
so like
I can't write an album, so I'd make an animation.
Yeah. And I think maybe a roundabout way of answering your question is, I think all of the things that I do are quite personal. So I'm motivated enough to do them because they're like helpful, and it's not that they're all a big therapy session necessarily, but it's like they all have very personal themes, and they're like I honestly do hate putting myself in to the films, and I'd rather watch someone else, but it wouldn't be authentic if I didn't. So like, like that film, like I just mentioned, it's just like my voice is through it. Longbird, I was in it because I didn't know what I was doing, and it was about making a film, and I didn't know how to do it. Like Dom, A Cat Called Dom is our feature. It's about my mum was ill and she had cancer, and I thought she was going to die. She luckily didn't, and we're closer now than we ever have been. But it was like, I'm doing something useful for like myself. And the weird twist is that in turn, it is hopefully useful for other people, which is not, and it won't be useful for everyone. I'm very kind of, I don't know, not trying to be too like much of a know-it-all about all this, but I think I'm motivated enough to do things because they're my stories, really.
Well, it's an attachment to you.
Attachment
to it.
I think I'd struggle writing a thing that I've really got no attachment to, you know what I mean? And I asked that question to myself a lot. I'm like, okay, I want to make this film about this, and I'm like, why? Like, why? And I always struggle with that. That's why it always comes back to like just something that only I can make, you know? Like we're doing a thing. We're in development with a big studio on a Christmas movie, which might not happen. You never can know, and it's been a couple of years. But like they actually taught us, me and Ainsley, a really, really valuable thing. And they were like, you pitch something that we could get someone else to do. Like we could find another directors to do that. You need to go away and come back to us and pitch something that only you can do. And we did that, and it kind of worked. I mean, it worked as far as it's like, well, we're in development with this big studio on a movie. So it's like that. It's such a simple thing but me and Ains talk about that a lot. We're like, that was.
I mean, that's a really
good,
a really big message, isn't it?
Yeah, only something that you can do, and that could be. There could be loads of reasons, but it's like maybe it's your background, your heritage, your experiences, your access, your whatever. I don't know what it is, but we went away and went, oh, and took our time as well. Like went away, really thought about it. We're like, yeah, something only we can do. Cool. And I think that's the way I think about filmmaking. I think.
Well, it adds that authenticity.
Yeah, that's what you want to see. When you watch anything, you want to see something that someone knows what they're talking about. Do you know what I mean? Like, even if it's just funny or if it's just whatever, it's like you a bit of experience,
Actually, kind of speaking of which, the A Cat Called Dom. Like, how did you, obviously that's quite a grand gesture for your mum. How did she react to it? And obviously, you said it brought things a lot closer. Which is
just before you answer that, just like to give some feedback to people. Can you just tell what is the Cat Called Dawn, so people that is watching don't know what it is?
Yeah.
So
sure. Yeah, I realized I just jumped right in. So like A Cat Called Dom is a personal documentary feature film that me and Ainsley Henderson have made together. We just finished it last August. And it played at Edinburgh Film Festival, and now we're kind of slowly doing festivals. We're going to have a short, for people in the UK, we're going to do a short, quite a small release. It's kind of like an art house film. It's a weird format. It's 60 minutes. One other thing would be, if I could do it again, I would make it 72 minutes, not 60 minutes, because 60 minutes is not the program. But it's a film about, it's mainly live action, and it's about a moment in time about 8 years ago where my mother got cancer, and I struggled a lot dealing with it and communicating with her about it, because I think when that happens, you assume that you all come together and you're all really there for each other and everyone bonds and everything's great. But in actual fact, the opposite kind of happened, and I found like I was more isolated than I ever was, and we weren't really communicating. And I kind of made animation kind of to talk to her. So she always found, I like comedy, I like funny things, that really motivates me. I would make these things with Ainsley that were kind of funny little birds, like from Glasgow, just kicking about and like, getting up to stuff. And she'd always find it so funny, and like it really like spoke to her. So what the idea kind of came out of that was, oh, maybe the cancer can become a character. And it became this character, this little black cat called A Cat Called Dom. And he's this really inquisitive guy that's always chatting and like asking like questions that are really awkward. And basically in the film, he tries to kind of bond us and get us to come together, because I'm kind of making him to speak to her. So all those elements come together. We're trying to make this film with this character in it, and it doesn't work. So it's like super meta, because it becomes a film about not really being able to make a film. And it becomes a sort of essay where I piece together all these bits of animation and filmed footage of my mother together to try and make sense of the cancer diagnosis. It's fucking weird, but like, like one of my favorite films is a film called F for Fake. It's like a film by Orson Welles. It's like he basically he takes away a production and he weaves himself into it and makes this other film that's like just so interesting and playful. And animation is inherently playful. So like always been interested in those ideas, and that's kind of what A Cat Called Dom is all about. It's really about animation. It's about working with your friends. It's about like communication, really. You know what I mean, or lack thereof. But yeah, and I just we're but not many people have seen it yet. It's just kind of done, and we're gonna do a short UK tour thing. So hopefully a lot more people will start to see it I think we're talking late this year. I think we're going end of September in Scotland anyway. And then it'll go down to London and it'll cross the UK, I think, in like Picture House cinemas, hopefully.
Is like, will your mum come with you and like one or two of them? Because I just think it'll be an awesome like Q&A between like yourself and your mum and after the film.
Yeah, and sorry, I realized that was your question, was has your mum seen it? And yes, she came to the premiere and I was fucking terrified. And my dad's in it too, and they both came, and it was, you know, like I've done a lot of Q&As for shorts like over the years, and I feel like, you know, you get little butterflies sometimes, but it's like, it's fine. But this was like next level. It's like,
And was the first time they saw the whole thing? Or?
my mother had seen it, but she had seen a nearly final cut, but it did change a little bit.
She must have shed a lot of tears, like she must have done in that film.
It was a big night, and we screened it at the Barbican at London International Animation Festival. It opened the festival last year, and they came to that as well. So I think, to be honest, they're getting a bit more used to it. It's like, okay, you know. But there's similar. It's funny because like when I escape, because again it's kind of about escapism, I guess. When I escape is like jumping into the computer and like animating characters and bringing them to life when you're afraid of losing something. My dad likes flying gliders, and like that's his one. He likes going and flying around, and that's his escape. So it's like you sort of, and I didn't really realize that until kind of making it. I'm like, oh yeah, we all have our ways of dealing with things, you know what I mean? And it's sort of I don't know, a portrait of those kind of ideas.
Did it affect the relationship dynamic between you and your dad as well, or was it just your mum?
The film is much more heavily about my mum, but there's bits about me and my dad in there for sure. And I think, and it's very understated. We're quite a quiet family, and that's another. When you see the film, hopefully, if you want to watch it, it's awesome. Like you'll see it's a kind of very quiet Scottish family that's like understated and doesn't say, you know, isn't gushingly emotional, or you know, like we're quite quiet. We're quite a quiet bunch.
I think my family's probably got a similar vein to that. They're all quite quiet, but you know, you don't have to say it to be close. Yeah,
it's what you do. It's the little things, the little gestures and things like that. But yeah, I've seen this the other night. I am really pleased with it. It sounds horribly indulgent. I mean, being an animator can be, I'll admit it, but like, I don't know. Again, it comes back to, it's like, do what you know, and it's what was important to me and what's interesting to me. Meta documentaries that are like patchworky and like, yeah, animating characters and making funny little scenes, and yeah, that's just that. It kind of encapsulates all the things that I like and I'm interested in and enjoy.
I think one of the like nice side effects in a way is that, you know, like your parents always ask you, oh, what do you do for a living? It's like, well, you know.
Yeah. They know, all right.
Yeah. One thing you commented in the beginning is you like create films about the process as well. So I want to touch a little bit, because this year you're being on Pictoplasma, and you did the opening for Pictoplasma 2023. I really love the video. Is one thing I really like about your work is we're living like, I don't know, you open Instagram, you know, when you look, it's all like that sexy, polished 3D everywhere, you know, and suddenly you look, the way you created the 3D is going complete like crafts, you know, not really trying to get that, but you get the message, the funniest there. So that opening for me was like, wow. And I was watching yesterday, and I have a 6-year-old daughter, and she was in love with the cat. And,
Greg.
she really liked it. She made me play quite a few times. So where did that idea come? Where, it's not a use thing we really used to see, like people creating more like that craft. I think we're losing that a little bit nowadays than we used to see more in the past, but nowadays everything is just, it's all like really sexy, polish, and they just like get quite all the same.
Yeah. Well, I would say the answer to that is like, I always think that like, it's like playing more. I'm always thinking like, when you're a kid, like you play and you're having fun all the time. And when you're an adult, there's this unspoken thing you're not allowed to anymore.
Yeah.
You have to like be busy and get on with it. It's like the reminder to like keep playing and keep like playing around and just having fun. And that's how Greg kind of came about. Because like Blender's always in development. So you're always just like, I always like just opening it up and just playing around with the new tools and stuff. And they brought out this new hair system that you could, using this stuff called geometry nodes, which is like a node-based more procedural way of working, which is so cool, by the way. And it's like, you can basically paint hair and then drag it out. And I'm like dragging it out, and then it's suddenly looking like these like monstrous, like, like strange like beasts that you'd see from like a horror Sesame Street episode or something. I'm like, oh, and it's funny. And it's just playing. It's like, and not being precious.
Yeah.
I think it's that. I think it's like letting yourself just play around, not being precious. That's what interests me. Someone else, it's like, what I was saying, like, oh, do only something that you can do. It's like anyone, like someone is going to be much better at modeling and like making beautiful, like perfect hair and like how it lays on your body, like on the shoulder and all that. I'm not that guy. I'm not patient enough. It's like, I'm just going to do something that'll make me laugh. And then and play around with it. And then the weird thing kicks in where it's like, oh, I'm going to like write a little story. That bit's getting harder. I'll be honest. I used to find that a bit easier. Like, oh, I'm going to like string it into like a movie, a film. Like I'm finding now, because I'm actually really social media can be awful, but I'm actually really I'm seeing it a bit like a sketchbook. Because it is a bit like a sketchbook. It's like, and again, it's like what I said before. It's like, it's very logical. It's like, okay, I need the tail to work with physics. That's what I was doing today for a little bit. It's like, I'm like, oh, and I want to be able to change the shader so that I can change the color of the hair. Like that's in the pictoplasma thing. It becomes like a different color. I'm like, it's really dumb. It's like, it's just because I wanted to learn how to like.
But it's really nice effect in the end.
Yeah, thanks.
Sometimes things don't need as I say, sometimes things don't need a rationale behind them. It just looks good, or it's just fun, and that's all it needs to be.
I think is what you say. I think that phrase, I'm just gonna repeat, you said it's like being a kid just having fun and we forget. I think that is something we lose a lot. I've been reading a book called You Were Born to Speak by Richard Newman. It's really nice book. He teaches a lot of people about talking, interviews, lectures, and things like that. And that what you said here, the whole thing about you were born to speak. When we kids, we speak freely, without worrying what other people thinking, and we have fun. And as we grow and turn into adults, we start blocking ourselves to all that kind of things. And what you said to me is just really related to me. Like when I watch my daughter, drawing or creating something with plasticine or anything like that, it's just a free mind, to have fun, to create without worrying what people is going to judge. And I think, that's something I love. You explain, and I love to see your work, because you just do it. You put in that and you're having fun, and I think as more I don't know. A lot of people, I'm myself, I lose a lot, I want to do a lot of things and I end up not doing because, what people's going to think, and it doesn't matter in the end of the day.
It doesn't. Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's hard though. It can get hard. But like, I think that's a thing that I try to remind myself that there was and you can love him or hate him, but like Ricky Gervais, Stephen Merchant, they said that about like, when you like watch making ofs, them doing extras, they're like pissing themselves. They're like laughing, so they're doing it so that they can like stop laughing, and then they do it again and again and again. It's because they've learned how to professionally play.
Yeah.
And that I get, like me and Ains do a lot of sketches like where we are talking to each other, and that's in our film A Cat Called Dom as well. It's like, and we do it to the point where we just laugh, and we have to do it again and do it again and do it again, and we're like, and that's a signifier for us where it's like, if we're laughing, it means it's good enough. It means like it's worth doing, and we get to enjoy it, and we get like the adrenaline from doing it, and then two, it's like, actually this is funny, so it's like, okay, cool, it's like two birds, one stone. But yeah, it's yeah. I mean, I'm painting the picture like it's all joyful laughter constantly and creativity, playful. It's not. But it's like, it's a nice principle to have, and I do really try to remind myself of it as much as possible, to like, and again, even just booting up Blender and just playing around with it and just creating something, and not, even if it's shit, it doesn't matter. It's like, that's what I'm here for. I can do that. You know what I mean? Not, someone else can make it better or whatever. That's fine. It's not the point. It's just.
But it won't be the same, and that's the uniqueness.
It's the stroke that you do, isn't it? It's like, be really simple and like not working necessarily like harder, just kind of smarter, and you know what I mean? That's why I love geometry nodes, because it's like you can suddenly make a whole forest of like whatever you want, and it's like, it's like play, it's fun.
With I guess with regards to like when you went to study animation at college, or I guess even before that, like, did you ever consider that you would, do what you do now, like work in animation, or has it always kind of been on the cards?
I always liked the thought, but I always thought I wanted to do animation, but I never really did it. So like, I did make things with like a camcorder that you pressed really quickly, like on and off, when I was like a kid, and it wasn't even my camcorder, it was my neighbor's. And like, so like, but it wasn't very good. I just always kind of felt like, oh, that's probably, I think maybe I thought like, that's like one of the hardest things I could try and do. Like, it's really, because I had no idea really. And it's funny because going into ECA, because it's like, I think it was like a 3-year course, or like it was a first year, and then it was 3 years doing animation. I remember like doing it, and I'm like enrolled and I'm in it. And then like the head of department was like, at the end of your 4 years, you have to make a film. And I didn't actually realize that. And I was like, I was in like panic. I was like, I can't do that. Like, I can't make like a film. And I wasn't sort of that interested in, I've not like always wanted to be a filmmaker. And now I would say I'm more of a filmmaker than an animator. I actually kind of actively avoid animating. It's like, and that's partly the rigging thing. That's what makes it so appealable, because it's like, oh, you're rigging things and getting them ready so that you can just play, But yeah, it's funny what it throws at you, because I'm like, now it's like, wow, I had no desire to be a filmmaker, and now I'd actually say I am a filmmaker now, and like not really an animator, and and I'm just playing around, and it's fun.
So what made you pick the course if you weren't originally, into animation? Was it just like, well, fuck it, I'll give it a go?
Well, I think I was originally into the idea of making animation. And then very quickly I was like, oh God, this is so hard. And then like studying it, I was like, oh, well, you can do animation in loads of ways. You don't have to draw. I mean, I was into drawing, but it wasn't about drawing, it was about acting. That's what you quickly.
That's true.
And it's like, oh, well, to act, for me, we were like, a tutor at the time showed us how to use Anime Studio at the time, which is Moho. And it's like, oh, right, okay, so you remove the sort of drawing bit. You're now like rigging and Now it's about who the character is. That's the most important thing, and what they say, or how they act, and how they hold themselves. And I met Ainsley there, and Ainsley's like very good actor. He was an actor, and he was a singer, and he was like suddenly we were playing around with characters, and I was like, oh, this is it. Like I love this. This is so fun. And miraculously managed to keep doing it until now. But yeah, it all makes sense. You know what I mean? To me, I think it's like it's about I don't know, being creative and playing. And
I guess that you know, when you pick your college courses and your university courses, you don't really know what you really want to do anyway. You're a bit of like a stem cell.
Do, but you know, I think it's fine not to. You know.
Yeah.
I didn't think anyone. I said before, I don't think anyone would want to see my film, and I was like shocked. Like,
in some ways, it's quite unusual to finish your degree in whatever subject, and then go to work within that field.
Yeah,
and it's like, what now? I don't know.
Yeah, it was very odd. I remember I was like, because it was I just did a BA, like a bachelor's. I was like, should I go and do a master's? You know, and like a lot of people go to like the RCA or the NFTS if they want to do films. And I was like, I had this film out and I was like working. I was like, I don't have time to like go and, you know what I mean?
Well, which I gain nothing, not as much from it as you would have, you know, getting your film out there and getting real world experience. I feel like a master's, it's a lot of debt and you're prolonging the inevitable anyway.
Yeah. That said, and again, like I've not decided yet, but I was thinking like this year, I was like, you know, I would love to go and study programming. Like that would be really helpful. Like just go do like a thing like that, just something that's different to like, because it's not that different actually, being honest.
I mean, if you got your background in Python anyway, a lot of these, you know, a lot of the like if statements and scripting would fall into place. Would be all right.
People who see this and hear you say he's got a background in Python, they'll be like, Will doesn't have a fucking clue what he's doing with Python. He's getting away with this. Just wanted to acknowledge that for anyone who might be watching. But yeah, it's like super, like again, and I think working in animation, it's like I have kind of, I now I'm more interested in the interactive stuff. It's like, okay, how do we do that? You know, and I have worked with friends in the past who are amazing, and like I kind of, that's another thing that I really would love to do, like
I mean,
interactive.
Sits in well with, you know, obviously like your self-learning Blender and what have you, like the idea of taking that into some like interactive form, into like a game engine, like you know, Unreal or wherever, or Unity. That would be super fun. And like what you can do with it, especially with technology that's like more accessible nowadays, like, you know, you got powerful phones, you've got know AR and VR and all that kind of side of things. It's all relatively accessible.
I
think that'd be super interesting.
Totally. Blender's been that gateway for me, and like you said, like your phones and that, I've been with Greg, it's like all motion capture face stuff with like a mobile phone that we already have. I don't have a suit or anything like that, and it's like, and then you can like, people make like mocap things that you can film your body in with your webcam, and it's like, it's glitchy as hell and it freaks out, but I'm like, great, man. It's like, again, it's like letting the process guide you, and like, you know, and just playing around with it. It's great. There's some amazing artists that do that I really like. I really like Nikita Diker's work. David O'Reilly's work's very good. Like, you know, he's got
interesting transition as well, hasn't he? Gone from like animation to like interactive, and now he kind of just does whatever really. But it's always got a really nice like creativity to it. And I think you guys have quite a similar humor, you know, kind of like dark in places, irreverent, but it's just nice.
I really like his work. He's great. His films are amazing. And Nikita's films so funny, and like, you know, they're sort of a bit documentary as well. Well, his more recent one is it's just, I find that stuff really, there's a whole other bunch of folk as well, obviously, but you know, I find that stuff just so exciting to watch. And I
pitched an idea years ago to the UK government, which didn't work out, but it would have been really good fun, where they put out like a tender for the plinth in Trafalgar Square, because at the time there was nothing on it. So I pitched the idea of like an augmented reality thing on your phone, you know, so you hold it up and whatever's on the plinth will be shown on your phone, just because you could do whatever the fuck you wanted, and it could be super interesting, and you could change it all the time.
That's
but
good.
They didn't reply to me, wankers.
Because
But that's so it's much
hit
more
them
forward
up.
thinking. It's much more forward thinking, and it was
Yeah.
all about creativity.
Yeah. You should send that email. Send it, chase it
I'll
up.
send it again. Look, I'm 10 years too late now, and I know you've built something. However, check this out.
We can knock it
Yeah.
down. It's fine.
Yeah. Put some tracking markers on it just in case.
It's a nice idea. It's a nice
I thought
idea.
it would have been fun. And it's something you could do in other cities or anywhere, you know.
Yeah, totally.
Nobody copy that, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Quick question: what would you recommend for people that want to start doing their own personal films? You know, like if you just is a student or even is someone in the industry but never did like personal work and want to get into little personal films, what your tips and recommendations for?
Well, I've went a few ways, but the ways that I enjoy more are just doing it. Like, we've done the whole like writing a screenplay and that works when you're working with more people. But if you're doing it yourself, like the film I made, Have Heart, the short film, it was made chronologically, just doing it and making up as I went along. It's like I would just be like, just find any way to just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know that's so vague, and but like if you're, I don't know. And I also start with character first. I have these like very simple things that I forget to mention. It's like character first always works for me. Like I create a character before a story. Other people do it the other way. I just think like we're kind of describing the human condition, and it makes sense that characters are the vessels to do that. So if you can create this thing that's like got a life and particularly if we're talking about animation, that's got this like personality and things, and you can communicate your ideas through that. That's a great place to start. Personally, I'm really into character stuff though, so that's just me. But any movie has a character in it. Any comic has a character in it. Unless you're an experimental artist and you're making experimental art, that's fine too. And then my answer to that would be just do it. Like, put something out there. But yeah, character first, and like, yeah, just doing it. So sorry, that sounds like a terrible answer, but
Yeah, no, it's good.
But it's what we need to hear.
Something we always forget, again, we always have things in mind to do, but we always get scared how people are gonna judge and everything, and never end up doing anything, And I think it is a good exercise, You just get practicing to do things,
Yeah, it's what we said earlier. It's a weird, strange mix of being obsessive enough to do it in the first place and being unprecious about letting it go. Like I do think about it a lot. I'm like, that's weird. That's a weird one. But like, yeah, like I think there's this thing with stop motion animators that they're even more. It's turned up to like 11 with them, because it's like they're so meticulous, and it's like, and getting it out. Ainsley's like a weird exception to that. He is meticulous, but he can put it out. He kind of puts it out and like washes his hands of it and then pretends it never happens. But like, it's a weird character trait. Like do something, but then don't be too precious about it, and then let it go.
You can imagine there's like certain levels on the on the spectrum kind of thing, and it's like at one of them it just says animator.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the other, yeah, and then if you don't care enough, then it's like the stuff isn't playful and fun and interesting, and the design isn't good enough, or what. I don't know what it is. We're describing a really complex thing, I think, but in my experience, that's what I think about. It's like,
can it even be verbalized?
Difficult. Good thing to run a podcast to find out.
That's good. Cool. We get into 1 hour show now. So do you want to ask a few questions, James? Should we finish with a couple questions?
I was going to ask where you get your like humor and stuff from, but it's a bit too close for an inspiration type question. But I assume like what's it called, like League of Gentlemen and stuff like TV shows like that.
Used to really like the Mighty Bush, and I used to, yeah, like,
Boston Crack Fox.
yeah, no, yeah, just like kind of character-led dialogue stuff. That's what I like. I've loved South Park growing up when I wasn't supposed to watch it, and I loved how it was like.
I like the censoring on it. I love the way they just beep it, even though they don't really have to. So good.
And it's all, again, it was all, I think there's not, it was all made out of paper. Well, it wasn't, but it was kind of all made out of paper and made to look like it was made out of paper, but it was rigged. And it was like.
They use Maya, don't they now? Yeah,
they use Maya. And it's like, it doesn't matter. It's like, you don't look at bits of paper. You look at like the worst person in the world, which is Cartman. And you're just like, you're not thinking about the animation. And The Simpsons is perfect like that. They're it's just so good, and they're just characters that exist in the world, really. And it's like you can just throw stories at it. I think probably subconsciously younger, thinking like that was just so exciting.
It's
my dream would be like makeup series that I like, a really big series. That's probably like. I don't know if I can even admit that properly, but I sort of have. But that would be so cool and so challenging, and I'm not even sure if I could do it.
There's a really good documentary about South Park called 7 Days to Air, where it's just all about their schedule. Because obviously, they react to news so quick, it's crazy quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, 7 Days to Air is a really good documentary if you haven't seen it. And obviously, the premise is in the title.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to see that.
Like, how do you think of a half-hour TV show script within a couple of days? It's absolutely mind-boggling. Obviously, they've got their ways of going about things, but that is still just nuts.
Yeah, I have this. Me and Ains are talking about it. We're like, because you've got this real-time renderer in Blender called Eevee, or pretty much real-time. But I think it won't be hard to get to Unreal or whatever. It's like, could we do like a live animated show? And I'm not pretending I know all how to do that, but that's again a motivator. That's you
were doing some experiments, weren't you, with I think it was like face rigging, where you're obviously speaking and whatever in real time. Like as an extension of that could be like how do you do that? That'd be awesome.
Yeah, we did. Like, when I was in Grease Pencil for Blender, we did an Adult Swim Christmas short for Smalls, and it was all like animated on iPads and iPhones, and it was all animated in like a day. And it's like, this would take, and it's 3.5 minutes, and it's shit, like it's wobbling about all over the place, but it's like, it doesn't matter. That's like, that was almost, and I was saying we're in development with a Christmas film. It's in that vein. It's like, that was an experiment to like, one, it was a thing that we found funny, so we wanted to do it. But that's an experiment to like play around with like a new process of like making things live, and how exciting that would be. It's like such a cool thing to try, like doing a puppet show, really. Like, oh, that'd be fun.
Even if technically it looks shit, it's clearly an aesthetic choice that works.
Yeah. And then you go like, oh, what's shit then? It's like, oh, it's not like really nice, smoother. You know what I mean? It's like, it's breaking.
Shit is just context. It's all contextual.
Yeah, it's all contextual. Yeah. But, all right. No, yeah, just, yeah. I get very kind of impatient. So it's like constantly going, all right, what can I do else that's going to fire something up here that goes like, nice. I like that. Like, it's fun. Have fun,
That's good. Cool. Should we finish with the question we always do, James?
Yeah, you can ask it because you're a filth bag.
So imagine yourself as your studio is on Tinder. Imagine animation Tinder, animation. Like a Tinder app, to hook with girls and guys, but like imagine animation Tinder version where you're gonna get clients, and everything. How would you put yourself there?
As in animation Tinder?
How would you describe yourself? Like curvy fun.
Bald, blind.
So you can get more clients,
Bald, blind, because I'm blind in one eye. So, I've got squint. Bald, squint, and enthusiastic.
That's good.
Is that why you picked 2D animation? Because of
Yeah.
depth perception was tricky.
Yeah, I've got 2D vision. I've got no
Interesting.
3D vision. So this Blender thing, it's a big, profound change for me.
So to you, it's kind of a 2D package.
It's a sort of, well, to everyone, it's a 2D package.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
No, thanks for the chat. And
Yeah,
if
thank you
you're
so
in
much.
London, should
Yeah.
catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
thanks so much.
huge thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it was great. And yeah, give a shout when you're in London. You know, be nice to catch up.
Or North Yorkshire.
Or
you're
not,
saying.
sure. I'll let you know
You
about
can
John
stop
because
halfway.
yeah.
Yeah.
In I think end of September, October, Cat Called Dawn will be at a small screening in both places. So I'll let you know.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, let us
Yeah.
know, man. That'd be great.
Cool.
That'd be great. So thanks so much. Before we finish, we have the next live show on
Let me bring my
8th.
calendar up.
I'm just opening the calendar. On the 8th of August, at Cafe 1001. We're gonna announce tomorrow the speaker. So please save the date, come down and say hello. It's the live show, so it's a physical show. You can get drunk for real, you know, not just behind the screen. So, well, thanks so much, man. I hope to see you when you're down here. Let me know when the show is out. We really want to see that. And thank everyone.